Been confirmation from the KwaZulu-Natal Premier, the IP's Thami Ntuli, this week that he wants his province to build a forensic laboratory to process DNA evidence because it currently doesn't have one in the province. There have been problems with DNA labs run by the SAPS for years. In some cases, huge delays because of a massive backlog of cases. Ntuli's decision comes after the murder of Ayabonga Mjilo, who was kidnapped and killed and then found buried in a makeshift grave. Well, the KwaZulu-Natal Premier, Thami Ntuli, joins us now. Mr. Premier, good morning to you, sir, and thank you for your time. What kind of laboratory do you want to build in your province?
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to the viewers at home, and thank you for having me. Well, I must clarify that the DNA forensic laboratory will be not for the province, but for for SAPS. It's only that then we engaged one of the private sector, one of the business leaders on a mission to ensure that we expedite having the DNA forensic lab. And they were looking just for the piece of land that the police had to also confirm that it was a suitable piece of land. And the report I just received in the last Executive Council meeting on Wednesday was that there are now options. There is a facility which was used in Durban, which has been made available by Public Works and Infrastructure, though the concurrence by the National Minister will be still required, and the agreement with the SAPS that the facility is suitable is also required. We are, however, looking forward to have this DNA forensic lab because the problem of the GBV cases, they are delaying in courts since the analysis of the evidence which requires the DNA forensic lab has to queue on a very long list. Hence, having one in KwaZulu-Natal will help to expedite the cases of the GBV so that the court will be able to decide. There will be no cases withdrawn. There will be no cases delayed. It is a way of us as the provincial government to try and ensure that we introduce any required support to try and address the issue of GBV in our province.
Do you know at this stage how long all of this could take? From what you say, it seems they may not have to build a whole new building. They'll take over this facility. Are we talking a year, 2 years? And sometimes doing refurbishing work can take quite a long time.
No, in fact, we are hoping for this year. The discussion we had Wednesday in the Executive Council meeting with private sector that is collaborating was that it's important that they spend their budget before the end of September this year. So we are looking forward to see if in March there is an agreement to use the facility made available, which and then the equipment and other touch-ups will be made to the facility in order to ensure that it could be used. But it's all dependent on the police to say, because the lab will be for the police to say we can carry on. But on our side, we have someone who is ready to assist with the money to either build or to either only put the equipment. Of hence, I've mentioned that the indication is that that month should be spent before the end of September. So it means we're required to move quite a bit. Like we resolved that I will be engaging the national ministers, the National Minister of Police and the National Minister of Public Works to try and seek for concurrence in the use of that build facility because the MEC for Public Works and Infrastructure in KwaZulu-Natal indicated that if we can be in agreement by March, we should be able to agree on the use of the facility.
There have been huge problems with DNA labs in the past. They are run, as you say, by the South African Police Service. And national government says many times, it said GBV, fighting gender-based violence, is a priority. And these labs are vital to that. Do you think national government's been taking this seriously enough, or the police taking this seriously enough?
Well, I'm aware that already for a long term planning, there is another DNA lab which the police was planning. There is a committee that has been looking at the building of a DNA lab. Hence, we said we cannot wait for a long-term, in fact, implementation of the DNA forensic lab. Let us ensure that processes, they move concurrent, but ours, because already we are in a position now to build or to either introduce the equipment in the facility and do a bit of restructuring for it to suit the purpose. We said we ought to continue. We are taking it serious. And I know that they are also having, the national government, they also have a plan, as I've indicated, though theirs is a long term.
Mr. Premier, if I may, you are the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, and of course the Itala Bank story, which emerged last night, an announcement from the Prudential Authority of the Reserve Bank saying that they're going to take Itala Bank into provisional liquidation. Then a statement from Itala Bank, which technically comes under your government. They're saying they're actually going to challenge that decision by the Prudential Authority in court. I don't think I've ever seen a situation like this before. They also say that you are speaking to the finance minister, or your provincial government is speaking to the finance minister about this. Do you support what Itala Bank is doing here? Obviously, there are hundreds of thousands of people in KwaZulu-Natal with accounts there.
Yes, in fact, it's important that we try and preserve Itala SOC. For the people of KwaZulu-Natal, especially the previously marginalized community. Hence, you know that the majority of the people who are actually benefiting from Itala SOC are those who are previously disadvantaged. So it's important that we try and preserve Itala SOC. Hence, we have been seized before we even came into government with this matter. Which we thought we were moving quite positively, and we were looking forward to we finalized the rescue measures. And it was important for us to ensure that we engage the National Minister of Finance and to even engage the President of the Republic. We had a meeting when he visited KwaZulu-Natal, and we were planning that we do everything it calls for us to try and preserve Itala. The interest of preserving Itala is the interest of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. Unfortunately, the Prudential Authority and the RA, they seem to be not in support of the preservation of Itala by action or by implication. That is what then we are contesting on behalf of the people of KwaZulu-Natal, that while the issue of compliance is being addressed, but let us allow this Itala SOC not in fact to be closed, because that will be in fact a hard blow to the previously disadvantaged communities.
I understand all of that, and there's a long history to this. The Reserve Bank, or the Prudential Authority, says that Itala it's run in a very expensive way. I presume that might mean that they have too many employees, I don't know, or too many managers, I think is what that means. But they also wouldn't be taking this action, and I realize this is difficult, but they wouldn't be taking this action if they weren't worried. It would be an absolute tragedy if a bank were to collapse, and maybe isn't that what the Prudential Authority is worried about?
What was more important, in fact, Stephen, I think, was an intervention which was going to support the preservation by, in fact, spelling out the challenges and also the solutions. If then the issue was going to be that the guidance given is not considered, then it was something else. Otherwise, the RA presence in the Itala SOC, in fact, did not heed the direction that to try and assist the institution to be, in fact, comply in terms of the requirement. According to ourselves, as the government of KwaZulu-Natal, Itala is in a better financial position. There are no elements which reflect that the Itala is not, in fact, or deserve to be liquidated. We are of the view that there is this interest which underlines the action by the PA, which we need to ensure that we all work together to try and preserve Itala for the people of KwaZulu-Natal.
Mr. Premier, if I may also just ask briefly about the Ingonyama Trust, and it's very important to many people in KwaZulu-Natal, and a strange set of circumstances developing. It's quite complex, but it looks now like Parliament might ask or invite or even insists that the King of the AmaZulu, King Msizulu Kazwelithini, come to Parliament and answer questions about the Ingonyama Trust. He's appointed himself as chair. This is a very difficult situation. There are all sorts of problems developing here. Are you worried about this?
Well, I hope when we meet with His Majesty, our King, we will be able to find a way forward. Hence, we are arranging a meeting wherein also the national minister and also would be present, and then we would engage and look at the matters surrounding Itala. In any event, there has been challenges which are well known by both of us, His Majesty the King and the national minister. And we even had a side talk with the national minister on the challenges and the way forward. It's only a matter of what appropriate action ought to be done and who had to take that appropriate action, the delays that might have resulted to some of the technicalities. And then that is what we'll be looking at. I'm of the view that we still have a platform that will resolve the current situation.
Mr. Premier, thank you very much indeed for talking to us about the DNA laboratories, but also I really appreciate you answering our other questions, of course, this morning from the province that you lead in KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you. We will continue that conversation around DNA labs. We'll speak to the Regional Director for DNA for Africa, Dr. Vanessa Lynch, in just a minute. Do stay with us.